There is a silent, invisible killer in your bank account. It doesn't look like a threat. In fact, it looks like a reward. It is the extra $1,000 at the end of the month. It is the bonus you didn't expect. It is the surplus. Most people look at this extra money and feel a sudden, overwhelming sense of relief. They feel the pressure of the world lift for a moment, and their first instinct is to use that money to buy more relief. They buy a better dinner, a newer phone, or a more comfortable car. They call it enjoying the fruits of their labor. But in the architecture of true wealth, this is a fatal error. What you call profit, the market calls seed. What you call relief, the future calls opportunity cost. When you spend your surplus on comfort, you aren't just spending currency. You are executing the future versions of yourself. You are burning the oxygen of your 60-year-old self to feel a spark of warmth today. You are trapped in the most dangerous cycle in modern economics, the relief trap. Today, we are going to dismantle the illusion of extra money. I will tell you why your surplus is not yours to spend, why comfort is the highest tax you will ever pay, and why the person who wins is the one who can sit in the silence of their surplus without ever touching the flame. Prepare to change the way you see every single dollar that enters your life. This is not about budgeting. This is about the physics of survival. To understand why you are programmed to stay broke, you have to understand the chemistry of your brain. For thousands of years, survival was a game of calories. If you found an abundance of food, you ate it until you were sick. Why? Because tomorrow was not guaranteed. Your brain evolved to view abundance as a temporary gift that must be consumed immediately. This is the predator's reward. In the modern world, this instinct has been weaponized against you. When you see a surplus in your bank account, your brain releases dopamine. It signals that the hunt was successful. It demands that you celebrate. This celebration usually takes the form of lifestyle inflation. The 90% are victims of their own biology. They earn more, so they spend more. Their income rises, and their cost of being rises with it. They are like a hamster on a wheel that gets faster every time they run. They feel like they are winning because the numbers are getting bigger, but their distance from freedom remains exactly the same. The architect understands that relief is a biological trap. If you use your surplus to buy comfort, you are telling your brain that the hunt is over. You are signaling that you have reached the destination. But $10 million is not reached through a series of celebrations. It is reached through a series of delayed gratifications. To win, you must learn to ignore the dopamine. You must view your surplus not as a reward for the past, but as fuel for the future. If you can't survive the feeling of having money without spending it, you will never be wealthy. You will only ever be a high-income consumer. Every time you upgrade your life using your surplus, you are signing an invisible contract. I call this the debt of comfort. When you buy a more expensive house, you don't just pay for the walls, you pay for the maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, and the social expectations that come with the neighborhood. You have increased your baseline friction. Most people think they are buying freedom, but they are actually buying complexity. Complexity is the enemy of the Vanguard. Every new comfort requires a piece of your focus to maintain. Every subscription, every luxury car lease, every high-end membership is a leaking valve in your structure. The $10 million architecture is built on simplicity. An architect knows that the most powerful thing you can own is low overhead. When your costs are low, your surplus is high. When your surplus is high, your compounding engine has more fuel. The 90% treat their surplus like a fire that needs to be fed. The 10% treat their surplus like a forest that needs to be left alone. If you want to reach the level of the Vanguard, You must stop viewing your surplus as profit. You must view it as necessary maintenance for the machine. The machine is your future freedom. If you take the oil out of the machine to light a candle, the machine will eventually seize. How much of your life are you willing to trade for a better view? How many years of freedom are you willing to sacrifice for the relief of a status symbol? Let's talk about the math of the small leak. Most people believe that wealth is lost in big mistakes. They fear the market crash, the failed business, or the massive lawsuit. But wealth is rarely lost in a landslide. It is lost in the erosion of the margin. The margin is the gap between what you earn and what you need to survive. This is your sovereign space. The 90% allow the world to invade this space. They see a 10% raise at work and they immediately find a way to make that 10% disappear into their lifestyle. They justify it by saying it's only a small amount. But in the world of compounding, there is no such thing as a small amount. A $500 monthly surplus invested into the total market over 30 years is worth nearly $1 million. When you spend that $500 on a car payment or a premium club membership, you aren't spending $500. You are spending $1 million. This is the opportunity cost of relief. The feeling of relief you get from that purchase lasts for a week. The loss of that $1 million lasts for the rest of your life. An architect is someone who can look at a $500 purchase and see the $1 million ghost attached to it. They have developed the X-ray vision of finance. I will tell you how to see through the temporary pleasure and recognize the structural damage. To build $10 million, you must protect your margin with your life. You must treat every dollar of surplus as if it were a sacred seed. You don't eat the seed, you plant it and you wait. There is a massive difference between looking rich and being wealthy. Looking rich is a game of display. It requires you to exhaust your surplus. It requires you to show the world that you have made it. It is a loud, noisy, and fragile existence. Being wealthy is a game of density. Density is the silent power of a solid foundation. It is the ability to walk into any room wearing an old t-shirt, knowing that your architecture is unshakable. The 90% are terrified of being average. They use their surplus to distinguish themselves from the crowd. They want the world to recognize their success. This need for recognition is a financial gravity that keeps them anchored to the ground. The 10%, the Vanguard, embrace anonymity. When you are anonymous, you have no recognition tax. You don't have to maintain an image. You don't have to keep up with the expectations of people who are also trapped in the relief cycle. Anonymity is the ultimate luxury. It allows your surplus to grow in the dark, away from the prying eyes of social competition. Ask yourself, are you building a monument to your ego or a fortress for your freedom? One requires you to burn your surplus to keep the lights on. The other requires you to bury your surplus deep in the ground, where it can grow into something monumental. The $10 million architecture is not for the people who want to be seen. It is for the people who want to be free. We live in an age of adrenaline finance. We are told to hustle, to pivot, and to strike. We are told that wealth is a fast-paced game for the aggressive. This is a lie designed to sell you complexity. The most successful structure ever built by man, the global market, does not work on adrenaline. It works on inevitability. When you capture the surplus of your life and you feed it into a low-cost total market index fund, you are no longer a hunter. You are a planetary owner. You have tied your surplus to the collective energy of the human race. This is the silent alpha. By doing nothing, by simply refusing to touch the surplus, you outperform the active traders, the hedge fund managers, and the silent alpha speculators. You win because you have eliminated the human factor, The 90% lose because they cannot handle the boredom of a winning strategy. They think that for something to be effective, it must be difficult. They think they need to do something with their surplus. But the architect knows that the most effective action is strategic inaction. You pour the concrete and you let it dry. You don't poke it. You don't move it. You don't try to make it dry faster. You simply wait. The relief trap tells you that you should be doing more with your money. The Vanguard Principle tells you that your money is already doing exactly what it needs to do. Your only job is to provide more seed. The ultimate power of the surplus is not the ability to buy yes. It is the ability to say no. When you have a massive surplus that has been allowed to compound, you gain a level of structural autonomy that most people will never understand. You can say no to a toxic boss. You can say no to a business deal that compromises your values. You can say no to the social pressures of your peers. This is the true profit of your surplus. It isn't a new car. It is agency. Most people are economic slaves because they have no surplus. They are one paycheck away from disaster. This makes them fragile. They have to say yes to things they hate because they have no margin of safety. They used their surplus to buy relief in the past, and now they're paying for it with their freedom in the present. The architect views the surplus as a freedom fund. Every dollar is a brick in the wall that protects them from the whims of the world. If you want $10 million, you must realize that you are building a fortress of no. You are building a life where you are the only one who holds the keys. But to get there, you must survive the valley of disappointment. You must be willing to live far below your means for a very long time, while the world tells you that you are missing out. You aren't missing out. You are investing in the exit. There is a point in the build where the surplus stops being a number and starts being a force of nature. This is the point where the growth of your investments exceeds your annual expenses. At this moment, the relief trap is officially broken. You no longer need to work for relief because you have achieved sovereignty. But ironically, the people who reach this point are the ones who never sought relief in the first place. They are the ones who found joy in the process of the build. They are the ones who understood that the surplus was never profit to be spent, it was energy to be preserved. The 90% will watch this video and they will agree with the logic. But tomorrow, when they see an extra $200 in their account, the predator brain will wake up. They will feel the relief and they will spend it. The 10%, the Vanguard, will feel the same relief, but they will recognize it as a threat. They will take that $200 and they will bury it deep in the foundation. Wealth is not a matter of how much you make. Wealth is a matter of how much of your biology you can conquer. Stop buying relief. Start building sovereignty. Thank you for watching the Vanguard Principle. If you have the discipline to stay quiet and keep building, you are already one of us.